I should have known something was wrong when every guest at my wedding stopped blinking at the exact same time. The chapel looked perfect in the way expensive nightmares looked perfect. All white roses, crystal candles, polished oak pews, and sunlight pouring through stained glass like melted gold. But perfection had a pulse, and this place did not. I stood at the altar in a tailored ivory suit my mother had called elegant and my best friend had called emotionally dangerous, trying not to look like a man about to marry a stranger with the emotional temperature of a freezer in January. Adrian Blackwood stood across from me, tall, still, and devastatingly composed. His silver blonde hair brushed back from a face so beautiful it felt almost rude. He was an enigma, the rarest designation in the country, the kind of man newspapers described as powerful, untouchable, and private, which was a polite way of saying everyone was terrified of him. His gray eyes rested on me without softness. His mouth did not move. His hands did not tremble. And his mind was completely silent. That was the part that scared me most. I had heard thoughts since I was 12 years old. Grocery store complaints, classroom panic, neighbors judging each other's lawns, bridesmaids wondering if their shoes looked cheap. Thoughts were messy, constant, embarrassing little radio stations I never asked to tune into. But Adrian had always been blank. Not quiet. Not guarded. Blank, like a locked room behind a locked room behind a locked room. The priest smiled at us, though his thoughts whispered, "Do not look at the mother. Do not anger the mother." I swallowed. In the front row, Victoria Blackwood sat in a pearl-white dress, her smile calm enough to belong on a statue. Her mind brushed mine like cold glass. Almost done. The bond will hold. My stomach dipped. Bond. I looked toward the double doors at the back of the chapel. Closed. No, not just closed. Sealed. A thin black line curled along the edges like ink sinking into wood. Great. Ethan, I thought. Wonderful. Normal wedding. Totally normal. Just marrying a gorgeous human winter storm while the building locks itself behind you. The priest turned to Adrian. Adrian Blackwood. Do you take Ethan Harper as your lawfully wedded husband? Adrian's voice came smooth and flat. I do. Nothing showed on his face. Not regret. Not warmth. Not even boredom. Then the priest turned to me, and the chapel seemed to lean closer. Ethan Harper, do you take Adrian Blackwood as your lawfully wedded husband? My mouth went dry. I looked at Adrian, searching for anything human beneath the marble. His hand lifted toward mine. The moment his fingers touched my skin, the silence in his mind cracked open. It was not a whisper. It was a scream wrapped in velvet. Run, Ethan. Please. Do not say yes. My breath caught so sharply the priest blinked. Adrian's face did not change, but his thoughts crashed through me again, desperate, frantic, nothing like the cold man standing in front of me. Please, sweetheart, run before they bind you to me. I stared at him. Sweetheart. He had called me inconvenient 3 times this week. Out loud, he was ice. Inside, he was begging. Behind me, the guests sat perfectly still. Victoria's smile widened by half an inch. Say it, her mind ordered. Say yes, little key. Adrian's fingers tightened around mine, barely enough for anyone else to notice, but I felt the tremor. Then his next thought hit me, lower, broken, terrified. If he runs now, Mother will destroy him before he reaches the door. The priest waited. The chapel waited. My own heartbeat sounded embarrassingly loud, like it had never been invited to a formal event before. Every sensible part of me wanted to bolt. Every frightened part wanted to cry. But Adrian Blackwood, my cold Enigma husband, was standing there with a frozen face and a mind full of panic for me, not because of me. So I lifted my chin, squeezed his hand back once, and said the 2 words that made every candle in the chapel turn black. I do. The moment I said yes, the chapel exhaled like it had been holding its breath for 100 years. Every candle flame went black, not out, not dead, just black, burning without heat inside crystal holders that suddenly looked less romantic and more like evidence. A low murmur rolled through the pews, polite and terrified, the kind of sound people make when something impossible happens, but they are too rich to scream. Adrian did not move, but his hand locked around mine. To everyone else, it probably looked possessive. To me, it felt like a lifeline thrown by a drowning man. Do not look at her, his mind said. Do not react. Stay beside me. I turned my face forward so fast my neck almost protested. Victoria Blackwood rose from the front row with the grace of a woman who had never once tripped, spilled coffee, or apologized without planning a funeral for someone's social reputation. Her pearls gleamed against her throat. Her smile stayed soft. Perfect, she thought. The key has turned. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like it had missed a step on the stairs. Key. There was that word again. The priest closed his book with trembling fingers and announced us as husbands, though his voice thinned around the word, as if even he knew this was less a marriage and more a door opening somewhere it should not. Adrian turned toward me, expression carved from winter. Then he leaned close for the ceremonial kiss. My entire body went still. Not because I wanted to be dramatic, although honestly, under the circumstances, drama felt appropriate, but because his thoughts suddenly went painfully quiet. Not blank this time. Restrained. Careful. Holding back a storm with both hands. Out loud, Adrian whispered, smileless and sharp, "Do not embarrass me." Inside, his mind whispered, "I am sorry. I am so sorry. I wanted your first kiss as my husband to be yours, not a signal for them." The contrast hit me harder than the black candles. His lips brushed mine, brief and formal, a promise performed for an audience rather than a moment shared between two people. Nothing improper. Nothing lingering. Still, his hand trembled once at my waist, so faintly I would have missed it if my nerves had not been trying to file a complaint with the universe. The guests applauded in perfect unison. That was worse than silence. Adrian pulled back, eyes cold, mouth set. "Well done," he said, as if I were a nervous intern who had successfully survived a board meeting. "You followed instructions for once." My cheeks warmed with anger. "For once?" I hissed under my breath. "We have known each other for 6 days." His face remained unreadable. 6 long days. In his mind, he said, "Good. Be angry. Anger keeps him upright. Anger is safer than fear." I stared at him so hard, I hoped my eyes developed legal consequences. He offered me his arm. The room watched. Victoria watched most of all. I took his arm because I was not ready to become the first groom in New England history to sprint from a luxury chapel while wearing custom Italian loafers. Also, the doors were still sealed with that crawling black line, and I had enough survival instinct to dislike magical architecture. As Adrian led me down the aisle, thoughts brushed against me from every direction. Beautiful bond. Poor boy. Does he know? The Enigma chose well. No, Victoria chose well. A woman in a navy hat smiled at me while thinking, he will not last until winter. My steps faltered. Adrian's arm tightened beneath my hand. His mind cut through the noise, low and steady. Breathe in for 4 counts. Hold for 4. Out for 6. Do not let them see your knees shake. Annoyingly, it worked. I breathed. I walked. I did not collapse onto the imported runner and ruin whatever ancient nightmare aesthetic the Blackwoods had spent generations curating. Outside the chapel, the afternoon sky had turned the color of old silver. A line of black cars waited along the circular drive, engines purring. Adrian guided me toward the first one, but Victoria appeared before us, smooth as a shadow in heels. "My dear Ethan," she said, touching my cheek with gloved fingers cold enough to make me flinch. "Welcome to the family." Her thoughts slid underneath the words. "Welcome to the cage." Adrian stepped half an inch in front of me. "Mother," he said, "that is enough." Victoria's smile did not change, but the air around us tightened. "Careful, darling," she thought at him, though I heard it too. "You know what happens when you forget your place." Adrian's face went pale for one heartbeat before the mask returned. He opened the car door for me. "Get in," he ordered. His mind begged, "Please, Ethan. Trust me for 10 more minutes." I got in. The door closed. Adrian slid beside me, leaving a careful foot of space between us, as if distance could undo vows, candles, and whatever had just wrapped itself around my ring finger like an invisible thread. The car pulled away from the chapel. For 3 minutes, neither of us spoke. Then I looked down. My wedding ring was glowing faintly beneath my skin, not on it, beneath it, a thin silver circle of light. Adrian saw it too. His thoughts went utterly still. When he finally spoke, his voice was colder than ever. "Do not ask questions in this car." I looked at him. "Why?" His eyes stayed forward. "Because the car listens." And from somewhere behind the leather seats, a soft mechanical voice said, "Confirmed." The car's confirmation nearly launched my soul through the sunroof. I turned very slowly toward Adrian, because sudden movements felt unwise in a vehicle that apparently had ears, opinions, and possibly a retirement plan. Adrian sat perfectly still beside me, one gloved hand resting on his knee, the other curled just slightly near the glowing ring beneath his skin. His face said nothing. His mind, however, said several things at once, most of them not polite enough for a church parking lot. Wonderful. The car is awake. Of course it is awake today. Of all days, it chooses today to develop personality. I stared at him. He did not look at me, but one silver eyebrow twitched. Stop listening so loudly, his thoughts snapped. I almost choked. That was not how my ability worked. Probably. Honestly, I had never received etiquette training for accidentally eavesdropping on my legally mysterious husband's internal panic during a supernatural car ride to his family mansion. The city slipped away behind tinted windows, replaced by narrow roads, bare trees, and the kind of expensive countryside where every house looked like it had secrets and a wine cellar. After 20 minutes, an iron gate appeared ahead of us, taller than my apartment building and shaped with twisting black roses. It opened before the car touched the intercom. No guard, no keypad, just vibes and generational wealth. Blackwood Manor rose at the end of a long gravel drive, all gray stone, sharp roofs, and windows glowing gold in the dim afternoon. It was beautiful in the way a thunderstorm was beautiful from inside a locked glass box. A fountain stood out front, dry despite the damp air, its marble figures turned away from one another as if embarrassed to be involved. The car stopped. The door opened by itself. Confirmed arrival, the mechanical voice announced. Congratulations, Mr. and Mr. Blackwood. I hated that the haunted car had better manners than most wedding guests. Adrian stepped out first, then offered me his hand. His mouth formed a cool line. Do not wander. His mind added, please do not wander. The house rearranges for strangers. I took his hand immediately. Pride was important, but so was not being digested by architecture. Inside, the manor smelled like cedar, rain, and old paper. The entrance hall stretched upward for 3 stories, lined with portraits of pale, unsmiling Blackwoods who all seemed personally disappointed in my posture. Their painted eyes followed us. I decided not to tell Adrian, because he already looked one inconvenience away from becoming a weather event. A young man waited at the foot of the staircase, slender, neatly dressed in a dark green vest, with warm brown hair and the cautious smile of someone who had survived this house by being smarter than the furniture. Mr. Ethan, he said with a small bow. Welcome home. I blinked. Home was a strong word for a place where the walls looked hungry. Adrian's voice sharpened. Miles. Not now. The young man's smile did not move, but his thoughts brushed mine, quick and clear. He needs to know before sunset. My gaze snapped to him. Miles knew. His eyes flicked to my glowing ring, then away. Victoria has called the family council. They are waiting in the East Room, he said aloud. Adrian's fingers tightened around mine. His thoughts darkened, not with anger, but with fear pressed into the shape of control. Too soon. She is moving too soon. I pulled my hand back just enough to make him look at me. What council? I asked. Adrian's mouth hardened. A formality. Miles thought, a trap. I looked between them. Amazing. Fantastic. My wedding reception had been downgraded from awkward dinner to enchanted legal ambush. Adrian stepped closer, lowering his voice until it barely disturbed the air. You will stand beside me. You will answer nothing unless I tell you. And whatever they say, do not agree to a blessing. His mind whispered, a blessing is never a blessing here. Before I could ask the obvious follow-up question, which was everything, the floor beneath my shoes gave a soft silver pulse. My ring answered it with heatless light. Somewhere deep in the manor, a bell chimed 3 times. Miles went pale. Adrian's mask cracked for half a second. The portraits along the staircase turned their painted heads toward me in perfect silence. Then a woman's voice floated from the hallway ahead, elegant and pleased. Bring my son's new husband in. The Blackwood rule must be witnessed. Adrian leaned close, his breath barely touching my ear, his voice cold enough for the listening walls. Do not be afraid. His mind said the opposite. Be afraid enough to survive. The East Room looked less like a family council and more like a museum exhibit about people who had never enjoyed soup. 12 Blackwoods sat around a long mahogany table, all dressed in shades of black, silver, and judgment. No one spoke when Adrian guided me inside. No one needed to. Their thoughts rose around me like cold fog. Too young. Too bright. The bond took quickly. Victoria will be pleased. Someone wondered whether I could hear them. I pretended to study the ceiling, because nothing says innocent like aggressively admiring crown molding. Adrian placed his hand at the small of my back, not pushing, just steadying. Out loud, he said, "Stand straight." In his mind, he whispered, "I am here. I will not let them corner you." The difference between his voice and his thoughts was starting to make me dizzy. Victoria stood at the head of the table, smiling as if this were a charming family brunch and not the emotional equivalent of being locked in a bank vault with a dozen elegant sharks. "Ethan, dear," she said, "every family has traditions. The Blackwood rule is very simple. A bonded consort must remain within the primary residence until the first moonrise after the wedding." My eyebrows lifted. "That is it." Across the table, Miles stood near a silver tea cart, hands folded, face calm. His mind answered before anyone else could. "That is never it." Victoria continued. "During that time, the couple must share quarters, accept household protection, and refuse all outside interference." Adrian went very still beside me. His thoughts sharpened. She changed the wording. She added protection. Protection means surveillance. I looked at him. He did not look back, but his fingers brushed once against my sleeve. A warning. One of the older men slid a document across the table. The paper was thick and cream-colored, with ink that shifted when I tried to read it. "Consent to household protection requires only a verbal blessing from the new consort," he said. Adrian's voice cut across the room. "He declines." Victoria's smile thinned. I asked Ethan. Every painted portrait on the walls turned its face toward me. I could hear the house listening. The floor. The windows. Maybe even the stupid antique clock, which was ticking like it had personal stakes in my humiliation. I opened my mouth, then stopped. Adrian's thoughts came soft and urgent. "Say nothing, sweet. Please say nothing." That word again. Sweet. Not cold. Not distant. Not nothing. My fear did something strange in my chest. It stood up straighter. I smiled at Victoria, politely, because I had been raised in Vermont by a mother who believed good manners were useful in both dinner parties and hostage situations. "Thank you," I said, "but I do not accept anything I have not read with my own attorney present." The room went silent. Miles looked down fast, but not before I caught the sparkle of amusement in his eyes. Adrian's mind went completely blank for 1 second, then whispered, "Brilliant. Absolutely impossible. Brilliant." Victoria studied me like she had discovered a crack in a vase she had already paid for. "How modern of you," she said. "How American of me," I replied, and immediately wished confidence came with a return policy. Adrian took my hand before anyone else could speak. "The council is finished." He led me out without waiting for permission. Only when the doors closed behind us did he release a breath so quiet it barely existed. "You should not provoke my mother. You should not marry people without explaining the haunted paperwork," I whispered back. His mouth twitched. It vanished so quickly I almost imagined it. Almost. Miles appeared from a side hallway and guided us upstairs through corridors that seemed to stretch longer when I blinked. "Your rooms are ready," he said aloud. His thoughts added, "Stay near him after dark. The bond will pull." I did not enjoy the sound of that. Our rooms turned out to be one room, because apparently the universe had decided subtlety was for cowards. It was enormous, all dark wood, blue velvet curtains, a fireplace glowing without smoke, and one bed large enough to host a small conference. I stopped in the doorway. Adrian stopped too. For the first time all day, he looked almost young. "We do not have to sleep," he said stiffly. "I can take the chair." His thoughts were quieter. If I stay too far, the bond may hurt him. If I stay too close, he may fear me. I looked at the distance between us, then at the silver ring glowing beneath my skin. The room hummed gently, like it knew something I did not. I walked to the bed, pulled back the blanket on one side, and sat down fully clothed, shoes still on, dignity mostly imaginary. Adrian stared at me. I stared back. "We are both adults," I said. "Terrified adults, but adults." He looked away first. "Do not come closer than you want to." In his mind, so softly it nearly broke me, he added, "Please stay where I can see you." The bond did not hurt at first. It tugged. That was worse somehow, because pain would have made sense, and nothing about lying fully dressed on one side of a massive antique bed while my brand new husband sat in a chair 12 feet away reading a book upside down made sense. I watched him for 5 full minutes before saying, "You know the book is upside down." right? Adrian turned one page with the grave dignity of a man willing to die for the lie. I prefer it this way. His mind muttered, excellent. Very convincing. No one has ever appeared calmer while failing to read furniture. I pressed my lips together. Laughing felt dangerous. Not because he would be angry, but because I was starting to like the person hiding under all that frost, and that was probably how haunted. Family curses got you. Outside, rain tapped against the tall windows. The fireplace gave off a blue glow without heat. The portraits in the hallway whispered too softly for words, but I felt their attention sliding under the door. Adrian finally set the upside-down book aside. You should sleep. I glanced at him. Are you going to sit there all night like a disappointed statue? If necessary. That sounds bad for your lower back. My lower back is not your concern. His thoughts said, if I sleep near him, the bond will quiet. If I sleep far away, it may pull until he wakes in pain. If I touch him without asking, I am no better than this house. The tug under my skin tightened, gentle but insistent, like an invisible thread drawing my ring finger toward him. I sat up. Adrian. His head lifted. His face was calm. His mind was not. Do not say my name like that. I cannot protect him from wanting to be protected. I pulled the blanket back on the far side of the bed. Just sleep on top of the covers. 3 pillows between us. Shoes off, because I am not sharing a bed with a man wearing formal shoes like a cursed department store mannequin. For 1 second, his expression almost cracked. Almost. You are very difficult, he said. You married me, I reminded him. Under duress, he replied. Same, I said, and felt a tiny flare of warmth in his thoughts before he smothered it. Adrian removed his shoes, coat, and gloves with careful, controlled movements, then lay down on the very edge of the mattress as if the bed had a property line. The bond eased the moment he was closer. My skin stopped humming. My shoulders lowered without my permission. There it is, his mind whispered. He is calmer. Good, good. I turned onto my side, facing him across the ridiculous fortress of pillows. Why did your mother call me a key? Adrian went still. Ask me tomorrow. That is not an answer. It is the answer I can give without the walls repeating it. The fireplace flickered. The blue flames bent toward us, listening. Adrian reached across the pillows and touched one finger lightly to the inside of my wrist, a small point of contact, barely there, polite enough to pass any rule in the universe. His thoughts brushed mine in a whisper that did not feel like words exactly. Garden. Winter. Fountain. Silver door. Hide. Suddenly, I was not in the room anymore. I saw snow falling over a glass garden, white roses blooming under moonlight, and a younger Adrian, maybe 17, standing between me and a locked silver door. I saw myself too, 14 and terrified, though I had no memory of being there. Then the vision snapped away. I jerked upright. What was that? Adrian sat up at the same time, alarm flashing through his eyes before the mask returned. A mistake. No, I said, my voice shaking. That was me. You knew me before this week. The bedroom door opened before he could answer. Victoria stood in the hallway in a silk robe the color of fresh cream, smiling as if she had been invited. Adrian moved in front of me, so fast the pillows tumbled to the floor. Mother. Victoria looked at my glowing ring, then at our hands, which I had not realized were still touching. How touching, she said. The bond is already sharing memory. Her thoughts slid into mine, smooth and satisfied. Perfect. He is remembering the night Adrian ruined everything to save him. My mouth went dry. Adrian had not chosen me for the curse. He had chosen me because he already knew what the curse wanted. Victoria tilted her head. Sleep well, Ethan. Tomorrow, we open the family vault, and you will finally learn why every Blackwood consort before you was gone before winter. By morning, Blackwood Manor had decided to act innocent, which was rude, because I had personally heard the hallway whisper my name at 3 in the morning and watched a doorknob turn itself to face me like a suspicious brass owl. Adrian walked beside me toward the family vault in a dark suit with his expression locked back into place, all polished silence and winter control. I walked beside him in yesterday's courage, which was wrinkled, underslept, and held together mainly by spite. Miles followed 3 steps behind us carrying a silver lantern, his face calm, his thoughts anything but. Do not touch the mirrors. Do not answer the portraits. Do not let Victoria stand between them. Excellent morning advice. Very normal. Very home, and Garden magazine. The vault waited beneath the manor, past a spiral staircase that dropped farther than any basement in Massachusetts had legal business dropping. The air smelled like rainwater and old stone. At the bottom stood a round silver door carved with names, hundreds of them, looping around the frame in delicate script. Victoria was already there, wearing a black dress and a smile bright enough to be considered a threat in 40 states. Adrian stopped. His thoughts brushed mine, tight and controlled. "Stay behind me." I did not. I stepped beside him, because at some point during the last 24 hours, my survival instinct had gotten tangled with my irritation, and now they were making group decisions without me. Victoria noticed. Her smile sharpened. "How sweet. The new husband has opinions." I smiled back. "Several, actually. I am trying to pace myself." Miles made a sound that could have been a cough or the spirit of comedy briefly possessing him. Victoria laid one gloved hand on the silver door. The names began to glow, one by one, soft white, then fading into gray. "These were Blackwood consorts," she said, "chosen to steady the Enigma line. Gifted with honor." Adrian's jaw tightened. His mind said used. Trapped. Forgotten. The door opened without a sound. Inside was not treasure, not gold, not some dramatic pile of cursed jewels. It was a circular room filled with glass cases. Each case held a wedding ring and a portrait. Young faces. Gentle faces. Men who had stood where I stood, dressed beautifully, smiling uncertainly, not knowing the house had already measured them for silence. My glowing ring pulsed beneath my skin. I heard whispers, not thoughts exactly, more like echoes left in the walls. I wanted to go home. He promised I would be safe. The bond was hungry. My throat tightened. Adrian moved closer, not touching me in front of his mother, but near enough that his sleeve brushed mine. His mind was a storm behind glass. I should have run with him last night. I waited too long. Victoria turned toward us. The vault remembers every failure. Today, Ethan begins his preparation, and tomorrow night the bond will open fully. Adrian said no. One word. Quiet. Flat. The room went colder. Victoria blinked, and for the first time, her perfect calm cracked. "Adrian," she said softly, "remember your place." He looked at her, and his face stayed cold, but his mind was no longer afraid. My place is beside my husband. The silence that followed felt enormous. Then Adrian took my hand and pulled me out of the vault. We did not run at first. We walked, because Blackwood's apparently escaped family doom with posture. But the moment we reached the upper hallway, Miles opened a hidden panel behind a portrait and whispered, "West Garden Gate." 10 minutes before the house notices. Adrian pushed a small iron key into my palm. "Go," he said. "Alone." I stared at him. "Absolutely not." His expression hardened. "Ethan, this is not a debate. You are leaving. Why are you helping me?" I asked, though I already heard the answer building inside him. His mouth said, "Because you are inconvenient." His mind said, "Because I love you. Because I have loved you since the Winter Garden. Because I would rather disappear from this house forever than watch it turn your light into another portrait." The world stopped moving. Rain tapped against the windows. Somewhere below us, a bell began to ring. Adrian looked away, as if his own thoughts had betrayed him. I stepped closer and folded the key back into his hand. Then I said, "You told me to run, Adrian. You never said I had to leave you behind." The bell kept ringing, deep and patient, as if the manor had all the time in the world and we had already run out. Adrian stared at the key in his palm, then at me, and for one impossible second his face did something almost human. It softened. Not much. Adrian Blackwood did not melt. He thawed by one careful degree and acted personally offended by the weather. "Ethan," he said, his voice low, "you do not understand what happens if you stay. Then tell me." His jaw tightened. The hallway lights flickered. Behind the walls, the house whispered my name with far too much confidence for a building I had not formally introduced myself to. Miles stood by the hidden panel, pale and tense. "We need to move," he said. "The west gate is still open, but the manor is waking." Adrian closed, his hand around the key. "Fine. We go together." It should have felt like a victory. Instead, the floor beneath us gave a soft pulse, and every portrait in the hallway turned at once toward the staircase. Victoria was coming. I heard her thoughts before I heard her heels. Ungrateful boy. Sentimental boy. He was always too much like his father. Adrian went still. The temperature dropped until my breath fogged in front of me. His mind slammed shut, but not before I caught the flash of an old memory. A smaller Adrian standing in a white room, hands folded, eyes dry, being told that love was a defect the Blackwood line could not afford. My chest ached. Victoria appeared at the end of the hall, elegant, calm, and completely certain she had already won. The family council followed behind her like shadows dressed for a funeral, though no one raised a hand, no one shouted, no one needed to. The house itself answered her. Doors locked, windows dimmed. The carpet under our feet darkened with silver lines that curled toward my ring. Miles stepped back with the lantern lifted. Mrs. Blackwood, he said carefully, the rite cannot proceed without clear consent. Victoria smiled. Consent is such a modern little word. Adrian moved in front of me. The bond is ours, not yours. For the first time, he did not sound cold. He sounded tired of being cold. Victoria's gaze slid to me. Ethan, dear, step away from him. You are frightened because you do not know what he is. I looked at Adrian's back, straight and rigid, the back of a man who had spent his life turning himself into a locked door. Then his mind broke through, quiet but shaking. Please step away if you need to. Please choose yourself. Please be safe, even if it is not with me. That was the problem with hearing thoughts. Lies became useless. Masks became thin. And Adrian's mask, the one everyone feared, was not hiding cruelty. It was hiding a boy who had learned to survive by becoming unreadable. The silver lines reached my shoes. The ring beneath my skin burned cold. For a second, the hallway vanished, and I was inside Adrian's memory again. The winter garden. Snow against glass. White roses. A silver door. 14-year-old me. Crying without understanding why. 17-year-old Adrian standing between me and the door, whispering, "Forget me." Live. I gasped, and the memory snapped apart. Adrian turned just enough to see my face. He knew I had seen it. His thoughts went very still. Victoria lifted her hand, and the silver lines brightened. The manor hummed like a choir without voices. Adrian's eyes changed, gray to bright silver, not monstrous, not cruel, just overwhelmed by a power too large for one person to carry alone. The windows trembled. The portraits closed their painted eyes. Miles whispered, "Ethan, talk to him." I stepped around Adrian before he could stop me. The air felt heavy, like standing before a summer storm in Vermont, all pressure and static. Adrian looked at me, horrified. "Stay back," he said. His mind said, "Do not touch the storm." I reached for his hand anyway, slowly, clearly, giving him every chance to pull away. He did not. The moment our fingers met, the roaring in the walls became a heartbeat. Mine. His. Both. I looked into his silver eyes and said, "I am not afraid of you." Adrian's thoughts fractured, softer than breath. "You should be." I squeezed his hand. "Maybe. But I am more afraid of leaving you alone in this house one more night." The silver light around us stopped moving. Victoria's smile disappeared. And somewhere deep beneath the manor, the family vault opened by itself. The vault did not open with a crash. It opened with a sigh, soft and old, like the manor had finally grown tired of keeping its own secrets. The silver light in the hallway pulled downward through the floorboards, through the walls, through the bones of the house, and Adrian's hand tightened around mine, as if he expected the world to take me from him by paperwork and moonlight. Victoria went perfectly still. For the first time since I had met her, her thoughts were not smooth. They scattered like dropped pearls. No, not for him. Not for both of them. Miles lifted the lantern, and its flame turned white. "The rule has changed," he whispered. Adrian looked at him. "What rule?" Miles swallowed. "The vault opens only when the bond recognizes a choice freely made. The old consorts never chose. They were chosen." The hallway stretched, folded, and suddenly we were standing inside the vault again, though none of us had walked there. The glass cases glowed around us, each wedding ring shining like a tiny trapped star. But this time the portraits were awake, not moving, not speaking with mouths, just present. Their thoughts rose gently, no longer foggy echoes but clear voices, sad and relieved. He came back. Someone finally came back for one of them. Adrian's breathing changed. His face stayed controlled, but his mind trembled against mine. "I cannot do this. I cannot hear them. Ethan, I cannot carry more ghosts." I stepped closer. "Then do not carry them alone." The moment I said it, the vault disappeared. I fell into Adrian's memory as if through black water. Except there was no fear at the bottom, only snow. The winter garden spread around us, bright under a glass roof. White roses blooming where roses had no business blooming in January. I saw Adrian at 17, too tall for his age, too still for any boy, standing in front of a silver door, while a younger version of me crouched beside the fountain, confused and crying into my sleeves. I remembered none of it, yet my chest recognized the place like an old song. Adrian had found me there after my mind-reading first awakened, after I had heard too many thoughts at once during a school trip and wandered through a door no one else could see. The Blackwoods had wanted to keep me. A natural listener, Victoria had called me. A perfect key. Young Adrian had stood between us. He had looked at me, terrified and gentle, and pressed 2 fingers to my forehead. Forget this house, he had whispered. Forget me. Live somewhere bright. Then he had given his own memory in exchange for mine, sealing the door and taking the punishment of remembering both our fear and our escape. The vision shifted. Years passed in flashes. Adrian reading reports about me from far away. Adrian sending anonymous scholarship money after my father lost his job. Adrian blocking every Blackwood attempt to bring me back. Adrian agreeing to marry me only after learning Victoria had found me again and would bind me to someone worse, someone who would not hesitate to use my mind like a tool. The final memory broke me open. Adrian alone in the chapel before the wedding, one hand on the altar, thinking, hate me if you must, Ethan. Survive me if you can. Just please survive. I came back to the vault with tears on my face and Adrian staring at me as if I had touched the one place in him he had never allowed anyone to see. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. His mind whispered, now he knows. Now he will leave. I shook my head. You were never the curse, Adrian. You were the locked door they built around it. The rings in the glass cases turned from gray to silver, one by one. Victoria stepped backward, her confidence draining into silence. Adrian looked down at our joined hands, and for the first time, his thoughts and his voice said the same thing. Stay, he said, not as an order, not as a performance, a request. I heard every ghost in the vault go quiet, waiting. So I squeezed his hand and answered, I already chose. The moment I said it, the vault answered, not with thunder, but with light. Silver spilled from my ring into Adrian's, then raced across the floor in bright lines, touching every name carved into the stone. One by one, the glass cases opened. Old wedding rings rose into the air, spinning gently, freed from the same tragic ending. The portraits softened. Faces once frozen in sorrow looked almost peaceful, their thoughts brushing mine like warm pages. Thank you. Choose well. Live longer than we did. Adrian stood beside me, silent, but his hand trembled in mine, not from fear, from the impossible shock of hope. Victoria stepped forward, elegant voice thinner now. This bond belongs to the Blackwood line. Ethan is bound by blood and vow. The floor brightened beneath me. Miles looked at the glowing names, then at me, and smiled without hiding it. No, he is bound by choice. That is older than blood. The manor inhaled. Above us, doors unlocked, windows opened, curtains breathed. Victoria's pearls dulled one by one as the silver light passed her and wrapped around Adrian, not like a chain, but a quiet crown of moonlight. The house recognizes the living head of the line, Miles said. Adrian looked horrified. I have no interest in leading this family. His mind added, absolutely not. I cannot even manage breakfast without emotional damage. I squeezed his hand. Then lead it differently. The council lowered their eyes, not in fear, but recognition. When the last ring lifted and the names turned silver, the mark beneath my skin stopped burning and glowed warm as morning. Adrian raised my hand, staring at the ring. You are free, he said, while his mind begged, please still choose me. I leaned close. I heard that. By sunrise, Blackwood Manor had changed. The windows were open, the roses were white again, and the halls no longer whispered like a haunting rehearsal. Adrian found me in the winter garden, wearing a black sweater, no gloves, no armor. In his palm lay my wedding ring, no curse humming beneath it. Ethan, he said, nervous enough to be adorable. Will you marry me again someday, without rituals, without my mother, without a chapel that locks the doors? Just us, somewhere bright. His mind whispered, please choose me when you do not have to. I slipped the ring onto my finger myself. I already did. Adrian smiled like he finally believed me.